Hey there, folks. How are you? Deb Italiano here. I'm hosting tonight. Thank you for coming. We're going to wait about 5 minutes, give people a little window to join us. I hope that's okay with everyone. All right, so hang in there. Thank you so much. Turning on the recording. So welcome, everyone. Deb Italiano. I'm the founder of Sustainable Jersey City. This is our third season in doing a winter webinar series. And, we expanded the first 2-year-long conversation around tree education into now urban design. That's a little bit difficult to unzip if you're talking about capital improvements projects in your towns. I'm thinking most people on the call are from Jersey City. Some are not. We're going to, because we have a small group, go around and quickly introduce ourselves so that Heather knows who she's speaking with. Heather, Heather is a board member of Sustainable JC. She's an urban designer, landscape, architecture is her background, but she's, wielded some high-powered positions in New York City that has her hands beyond a lot of what would generically be called best practices in urban design. So we're very fortunate to have her expertise to just, share some of the, I think, high-level understanding of what could be, something really terrific versus not so terrific, right? And in Jersey City, because we have a changing urban environment and a lot of capital improvement projects in the pipeline, there's going to be outreach to the public. So some of you who don't even live here, you have the same process in your municipalities where what you want to be able to do is be attuned to best practices, ask smart questions, and stand for the right stuff. So Heather's going to, talk a little bit about that tonight. So thank you all for coming. I think, Heather, two things. What I'd like to do is, because it appears that we only have how many participants here tonight? It's a small group, but we always do these cozy, groups. Maybe really quick, just have people say who they are, where they live, and what they do in terms of why they're interested in being here tonight. For instance, I know we have a couple of environmental commissioners from other townships on the call, and you kind of want to know who you're talking to. So David, why don't we start with you? This is going to be a fast, kind of a speed dating thing. So real quick, who are you?
Dave Butler. I'm live in Washington, the borough of Washington, in Warren County. I'm on the Shade Tree Commission and also the Green Team in the borough of Washington. And I'm retired.
And he's a groupie. Thank you for that, Jeannie Dilly.
Oh, Jean?
Yes, Jean Daly.
My name is Jean Daly. I live in Jersey City, but I grew up in Hunterdon County. So I'm more familiar with a rural or sort of farm life. It basically built who I am. And being in an urban town, whether it was Manhattan or now Jersey City, I believe there is so much that we can impart upon the youth by bringing in trees, whether they be fruiting or flowering, as an educational system, because it is such an opportunity for discovery.
Are you part of the school district in any capacity or another community organization focused on youth?
No, I'm just me. I know I'm more an advocate at City Hall for transparency and responsibility. And I just go all the council meetings and caucus meetings and fight for what's right.
Okay, great.
Are you
Tick, tick.
familiar
But I
with,
also volunteer at the Harston Cemetery.
Oh, nice. Okay,
are
very
you
good.
familiar with Richard Louv, Last Child in the Woods?
No.
That's a book I would recommend to you. He talks about something called nature I think he coined nature deficit disorder.
Mm.
You will love him. You can Google him and watch some of his talks, but it's very beautiful. You know, it's really like kids who have ADD, you know, can help them just getting the experience of being in the woods.
Yep.
So it's kind of what I think you're talking about a little bit, and how
Yes, that's a great
Really repeat that,
suggestion.
Heather, for
it's
everybody
called
else.
Child in the Woods by a man named Richard Louv, Louv.
Okay, great.
He's great. He's
Got
just
it.
marvelous, and how important it is for children to have the experience of nature, and how emotionally important it is, and also how it can help kids actually deal with some of the,
Hmm.
you know, their emotional issues.
Yep.
But also it's a, you know, he calls it like it's a syndrome or something, not having that relationship
Yep.
with nature. So
I
think
agree.
you like it. Yeah,
Oh, thank you for the recommendation.
you're welcome.
Thank you, Heather. Frenchie Bailey.
Hello, I'm Frenchie Bailey from Greensboro, North Carolina. I'm a retired teacher and a master gardener.
Cool. Do you live in Jersey City now?
No,
Okay, so
Greensboro,
you
North Carolina.
just found us. Very, very nice. Far reaching. Thank you. Catherine?
Hi everyone. I'm Katie. I'm probably gonna keep my video off because I'm like eating and everything, but I just wanted to say hi. So I live in Jersey City. I live in the Heights. I'm interested because I think yeah, you know, like our trees and like tree canopy is something that I'm like interested in. I can't speak for all parts of Jersey City, but at least up here, we have a lot of dying trees. We have a lot of trees that get planted by developers because I think it's like part of what is required now for developers to do, but they don't take proper care of it, or like they're often planted. Sorry, my husband's just coming into. Hey, sorry.
Yeah, so Heather also lives up in the Heights, so at some point I'd like to think you guys will connect. Just because
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that'd be
you're
great.
neighbors. Okay.
Yes. So yes, you have a lot of trees that are dying for a lot of different reasons, and I mean aesthetically it's not great, but also I think, you know, taking better care of our trees is something that like as a city we can do towards not just like talking about the importance of climate change, but really trying to address it. So I'm also a gardener, so I like trees for looks, but then for practical reasons too. So that's what brings me here.
Okay, good enough. Hey there, Megan.
Cool.
Is Megan on?
Hi, yes,
Mm.
sorry, I'm here. I live in Jersey City. I live in Journal Square, and I've just been trying to get more active in learning about different ways I can be involved in the city. I'm also a gardener, so just wanted to check you guys out. Seemed like an interesting lecture.
Great. And then Dilip, you're another groupie.
Hi, I'm a volunteer here with the SJC, so I've helped with some of the cleanups. I've gotten to know Deborah over the last year. I also live in our Journal Square area. And again, just as a volunteer in a local community opportunity, and I just like to learn more about nature and trees. So these are some great lectures to spend time learning.
Great. What I'm going to do is just let everybody know real quick, and I'm going to put before Heather gets started, because I don't want to interrupt her talk, SJC's certificate program in urban sustainability. This is a quick announcement. Information will be in the chat. is in its 9th year. We've been offering this, what I'm going to call community conversation, for 9 years. This is our 9th year, actually. And what we do is offer 10 consecutive Tuesday nights to have a conversation for 3 hours. Sometimes it's 2.5 hours, but it's basically 30 hours of what we call training in different topics related to systems thinking, sustainability and resiliency planning, environmental justice and eco-justice, green infrastructure, emissions and emissions reduction, and waste streams. So what I'm going to do, because registration opened a couple days ago, I'm going to share that link in the chat. It's $75. We lose money on this program. That's for community members. We charge college students $12. Alumni who keep coming back to refresh their knowledge don't pay anything. So this is a learning community. Sustainable JC is an education nonprofit. So this is one of the ways that we roll up all the conversations we have all year long into one course. So it's intimate, it's an intensive. Check it out. Heather, it's all yours. Why don't you tell people a little bit about your background?
I'm trying to figure out how to get one thing on one screen of my computer, but all right, I may end up.
I gave
not
you
being
sharing
able to.
capability. Let me know if you're having tech difficulties.
Cancel, escape. Oh, damn. Okay, it's my.
Are you right there?
Yeah, here we go. Okay, I'm gonna have to, let's escape this. Okay, so share screen. I'm gonna share screen 1 for now. And okay, so now that's not the right thing I wanted to share. This I'm gonna share here. Okay, so can you, oops, let me go to the, okay. Do you see streetscape
Yep,
design considerations? Okay.
Yeah.
So I really plan this as a kind of interactive workshop. Okay, my crazy dog is here. Okay. So she shuts up. Okay. All right. I'll work for a few minutes. So I really wanted to talk about, so just a little bit about my background. I worked for New York City Parks for 8 years. I worked for the Bronx Zoo in design for 3 years. I spent 27 years at New York State Department of Transportation working on numerous projects, including the West Side Highway Route 9A project, which includes the bikeway, the walkway, and the highway, the roadway from Battery Place to 59th Street. And I worked on numerous other projects. But that was a very intensive, you know, streetscape. And so I thought that this would be something where we would kind of talk about what can be done and how we see things. I took a few examples from different cities and different locations. So this is one of my favorite quotes. I don't know how many people are familiar with William H. White. He's the he was a brilliant man who really talked about making the street life, having a very vibrant street life, meaning a lot of people there. It makes a place come alive. So this is just a very beautiful quote of his. The street is the river of life of the city, the place where we come together, the pathway to the center. And I encourage anyone to look at his work. He was the founder of the Project for Public Spaces. So I don't know how many people are familiar with that, but they deal with a lot of things that we're interested in. So how do you approach something like urban design or streetscape design in particular. And I just came up with a bunch of ideas, you know, about the first step would be the analysis of what is the character of the existing community. What is it that we want to preserve? What is it that we don't want to preserve? What is lacking? What are the environmental improvements, including trees, you know, heat island effect, sustainability improvements, you know, permeable pavements? Where do we have opportunities to do that? Noodle, why are you being so crazy? And of course, trees and other plants, but also supporting businesses, making a place, kind of like setting a table so that a meal can be had. So it's, you know, when I look at it, it's not that you're making businesses, you're just allowing businesses to thrive because it's a desirable place to be. So I thought I'd look at a few places, and I thought I would like just Google Kennedy Boulevard. I live in the Heights, so I look at it and it just drives me crazy because I take a look at it and you know, of course I see immediately Jersey City police officer struck by vehicle, suffers leg injuries, New York. I mean, look at that street. It's 6 lanes with the parking lane, wide lanes, wide sidewalks, some great architecture, but I'm sorry, come here. And so, you know, you take a look at that, what ideas does anyone have? I just would love everybody to, you know, what would you do to this street to make it better? Just a quick question to everyone. Or at least let's say, what's wrong with this street?
I'll tell. Oh, this is
Yes,
Jean.
please. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I would put a planted meridian right down the whole thing. Make it more of a boulevard. Slow down.
Absolutely. I'm with you.
Yeah. It's so obvious.
It's obvious, right? Anyone else? What's wrong here? Any other thoughts?
You don't have any trees. I mean, the electric wires, I think throughout the Heights are kind of wild. They're not like the
Kind of wild.
Yeah, so you know, and also I know that you know, I know a lot of the students who have to cross JFK for school find it very dangerous. It's something that comes up in meetings a lot. So ideally you could do something about that as well.
Thank you. That's good. Central Avenue, we just had a streetscape project. Sorry, I'm bringing him up or out to quiet her down. So this is our streetscape project. It was mostly pavement. There are some new trees here, quite small. Any thoughts about this? What's the character of this street? Any thoughts? I mean, to me, let me just start and if anyone wants to pitch in, sorry.
It's Dave. I see that it's like on the first floor of the building seems commercial, where up above it's residential.
Right.
What I do see is, you know, you could put in possibly some bump outs where you could put trees in, and it has a good basis for growing, where it's not like a 4 foot by 4 foot hole, but a larger space that it could get water to thrive on. You know, if you did plant trees.
Right. There are some trees here. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, I saw, on the
This one,
first
yeah.
picture,
And
of
here,
the
and this is
boulevard,
one. Yeah.
there was some way down on the right side. These
Yeah,
are very
that's a
young
different
trees.
street. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
what I
Okay.
think could have been done where the tree right in front of the State Farm building, the pinkish building,
Right.
could have been put into that, where it has the marking, no cars are permitted there. There's a hydrant back there. So maybe you could have extended that space down to that tree and bumped it out so it was,
Right.
Mhm.
out a little bit more.
So, oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't know about the flooding in that area, but if it were appropriate, a bioswale would be nice and also around the trees, or there should be some kind of planting areas to put more vegetation. On the near side, I don't know if that's the north side of Central or the south side. Not the south side, sorry, west or east side of Central.
We're looking at the
That's
eastern.
the east?
I think so.
That's the
Yeah.
east side? Okay.
Well, this is the west side, actually. We're looking at the west side.
West side of Central? Okay.
Yeah, from the east.
Yes, but I see whatever is on the eastern side, it's hard to determine what's there. So as far as improvements,
Right.
but a lot could be done with more vegetation.
Yep. So also what I see here, just to throw this out, is some nice architecture.
Yes.
There's some nice old architecture. Some of it is meh, but these are nice buildings. They have some nice quality to them. Too bad this was somebody decided to do this over here. But what doesn't strike me very comfortably is the kind of signage here. That it just, so many different types of signs that tend to obscure the great architecture that we do see on Central Avenue, because you almost don't notice how much nice architecture there is.
Yes, good point. That's a very good point, because there's no cohesion.
Exactly.
And so you lose the beauty, let's say, of those brick structures. Unfortunately, you get some of those things like State Farm in there. But also, I would think if they had some street lighting that was more attractive, like at a lower ground level.
Yeah.
That would
now,
help.
There is new street lighting, and later on what I want to do is go on Google Maps and take a little tour. But so let's again, existing character, like these are very old buildings with some kind of cool signs that are old. I love these, to me, this is so fun. And we've got some nice architectural features. And I love these old signs. This is me. So let's see if I can drive this over. I grew up in Jackson Heights, and if I can bring this up. Where is it? Okay. I'm going to bring this image right over here. And Jackson Heights has a very strict, it's a historic district. So they have a very interesting approach to the streetscape, which is a kind of uniform. I mean, we can take a little tour, but kind of uniformity of signage. That's quite lovely, I think. Now, and they have a lot of restrictions about gates, roll down gates. They have to be inside. Some places they can have other types of roll down gates, but you have to be able to see the, inside the storefronts. So there's a uniformity of the signs. Actually, let's turn around because that gets into the area. But I think it's a lovely kind of approach to have some greater uniformity of the signs. And there's awnings and there's uniformity of the awnings. So that's, having some consistency. I'm walking down the street. This is the purple street. It's not boring. I don't find it boring. I find it lovely. And it's not, if I compare this to Central Avenue, where we have some trees, we have some tree guards, it would be lovely to see something that just draws on some consistency. Just following up with what you were saying, Jean, and so it's just a thought. Anyone have any thoughts about that?
Yeah. The point being is that when you have that consistency, it does not draw away from the architecture.
Right.
It's not a distraction. But when you have all this mishmash of what we have, you look at that's where your focus goes.
Yeah.
Not on how the brick was laid or the cornices on top of the top, or who changed theirs. So I think the way it is now on Central Avenue provides a huge distraction to the loveliness of what it could be.
Yeah, I agree.
I have to say, I actually disagree. Living in the Heights, I love like the variety of businesses, and I think there's a lot of culture, and I love how like El Sabroso's sign is different than El Gordo's, and I think it's also really cool to see like there are a lot of different cultures and there are a lot of different people here, and uniformity I think can be really cool too. But I just, as somebody who lives here, one of the things I love about the Heights is that Central Ave specifically has such character, and it has such character because of the different people who live here and have businesses. So maybe it feels different to everybody.
No, I agree with you there, because I love Central Avenue too. I would say though, there might be, oh gee whiz, hold on, I gotta take this phone call.
I think there's a lot of that you wouldn't want total uniformity, but I think some more consistency would be nice, because some of the signs are just very large and obscure a lot of the architecture. Just my feeling, but I
think if you have certain elements that anchor, and then you have all the beautiful distinctions and the variety, but you can not be distracted away from a lot of what is really good architecture there. So you kind of run up the middle, which is why you want professionals doing this, right, Heather?
Yeah. I mean, look at this. These are great. I mean, I love these buildings, but I don't really love these signs. I just don't. I find them really obscuring of what all of this stuff is, or could be. But, that's just a thought about the elements of, now here are the new street lights. So, but this kind of obscures the architecture. There's no architecture here, but this building was really impressively redone over here. I mean, look at this. This is just fantastic. This one in particular, they did a really nice job, and they uncovered a lot of what had been covered. And here you have a really, these are just nice buildings. Unfortunately, I find that they don't get, the signs are so big and you're on the street level, you don't see as much, but that's just one consideration. So let me move this over. Yeah. So here are this is taken from the Jackson Heights, and that's a historic district, so you have more flexibility with what can be created with what can the restrictions can be, but there is, with the special improvement district, I would love to see a little more voluntary consistency, like kind of encouraging a certain, so they don't allow projecting banners, flagpoles, internally illuminated box signs with plastic or glass. A lot of this makes it a little intense, and the security gates not obscure or detract from the design and details of storefronts. It would be lovely not to see so many rolled down gates with graffiti and stuff. So, they'll say, okay, you can put a roll down gate, but it has to be mounted on the interior of the storefront. So I just took some of that. And here's that image from Jackson Heights. I'm not sure where this is. I just pulled it from somewhere, but it's another example of some level of consistency. Also, attention to the scale of the buildings, I think, is important. And then what works in a place like this? What's attractive about it? What isn't? I think the store, being able to sit outside is really nice. The architecture is nice. Those poles are ugly, and detract, but it's a pretty vibrant street. And this is a project I worked on for many, 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 many years. And one of the things we tried to do is, use plant material wherever we could. We have a decorative sign, but there's a lot of stuff people don't even know about that isn't in there. So it's not just what you put in, but what you don't put in. So just I know I'm jumping around, but what are the considerations, the engineering elements that are considered in a streetscape design? The width of the lanes. Narrower lanes can make traffic move a little more slowly, which makes things safer for pedestrians, and also can be better for business. Why is it better for business? Or local businesses, because you're not just driving through, but you're stopping. And the most successful urban areas from a commercial standpoint have a lot of traffic. So getting rid of traffic, which is speeding up traffic, does not necessarily equate to a good quality of life, because again, if you think of, not that we want to make everything into Manhattan, but the most successful areas are crowded. So distance between pedestrian crossings, if you have to walk 5 blocks to cross the street, that's not great. That's 1,000 feet. Not everybody can make it. The speed of the cars, what's the speed limit? Where are the traffic signals? I've noticed we have many pedestrian crossings and few traffic signals. Pedestrian crossing distance, and going back to Kennedy Boulevard, massive pedestrian crossing distance. People walk, I think, 2.7 feet per second. I can't remember exactly, back from my New York State DOT days, but you have to think about an elderly person or a disabled person crossing the street. What is their perception of their safety? If you feel like you're going to cross a street and you can get hit by a car, it's not the greatest thing it's not that inviting. And then we've got high accident or crash locations. So we want to analyze, where are the accidents? And, what are the reasons and when are they happening? So we can do an analysis of time of day. What are the draws? Is it like people going from one place to a bar or walking back from a bar, which is, not an uncommon thing? And what are the draws that are making, accidents more likely to happen. So, and the ability for a pedestrian is like the pedestrian has the right before a car. Our basic right is to be able to walk or traverse in whatever way possible, you know, by foot. And that is the most important thing. We have an innate right to be able to walk around, whereas we don't have an innate right to drive a motor vehicle. So there's a lot of things to be considered. Mobility, pedestrian mobility, motor vehicle mobility. I have a car, so I'm not anti-car, but truck routes. How do we get our goods and services? How do we keep pedestrians safe in truck routes? Bicyclists, encouraging people not to drive, but possibly to bicycle, and access to transit. So those are some of the considerations. Here's the Route 9A project, that the West Side Highway. And I just like to ask people what they think, what do they notice in terms of the urban design components? Anyone? I can point them out, but yeah, go ahead.
I can actually. I know, because I lived in Manhattan for a long time, and when it was like officially the West Side Highway,
right?
And the changes are, you know, the changes are staggering. I think the only thing I don't like about it, they call it West Street. I'm sorry, it's the West Side Highway. That's, you know, that's the way I see it. Oh no. Sorry, my son's going to be bothering me. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to have to go.
So I'm going to just continue on some of the things that we did here. There's a 20-foot wide pedestrian or 18-foot wide pedestrian, a median, planted median. And in the median, we have bollards that protect pedestrians. So the median is not only a median separating the directions, but a median for pedestrian refuge. What does that mean? That means a pedestrian only has to cross 33 feet or less. Actually, I think fewer than 33 feet. Some places it's like a little bit more before they can stop and feel safe. And the bollards are cast iron bollards that I believe they're filled with concrete to, should there be a car that veers off, it would mitigate the impact. Something that's not always looked kindly upon, because, you know, generally traffic engineers want a barrier that you can crash into that's got barrels and stuff like that. But we convinced the Federal Highway Administration to do this. The signals.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Federal Highway system, you had to get a variance for that?
It's not a variance. They paid for 80% for most large projects, transportation projects. Federal, it's 80% federal money. So
I see. You had to convince them.
Administered by the Federal Highway Administration, who worked hand in hand with us throughout the entire project. So
I see.
What are the other things? Anyone notice anything about that traffic signal? It's hard to see it on the upper, hanging from the top. Or the
left-hand side?
Traffic signals.
Why not? I see that there's traffic signals on both sides.
What about the color?
Well, they're nice.
What's the color of the traffic signal? What's that?
The green is beautiful.
The green matches everything else.
The vegetation, yeah.
Well, the green matches the color of the poles.
Yes.
So
again, it's more cohesion.
We had to fight for that. Usually the city puts in yellow signal heads.
Yeah.
So we had to fight tooth and nail, and we finally won. So the traffic signals are not something that somebody would say, oh, look, but the yellow is missing. You don't think about that, but it is.
No, you don't.
But it makes a huge difference in the appearance, even though you're not aware of it. Right?
That's a very, very, I'm so
It's
glad
so
to,
designed,
have you as a speaker
spectacular
because
win.
it's really sensational.
Very good.
So
You also
what did you
have
say?
pedestrian signs, Heather.
What's that?
On the first one, you can see, and on the second pole, you see the pedestrian crossings,
Mm-hmm.
the light.
Both sides.
Both sides, yeah. We had them on both sides wherever we could. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
There are places where we didn't, but they are ADA compliant. You know, and that was a big consideration. The
Mm-hmm.
other thing is we sort of went out of our way to find a traffic barrier, which is the concrete barrier there over here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 30-inch barrier that was made in Texas, developed by Texas. Initially, they wanted us to use a Jersey barrier, which is, you know, the typical concrete barrier, which would have been horrible, but we finally found a barrier. It's not beautiful, but it's
Better.
and you know, we put in the planting, which was so. There's another thing I want to point out. I don't know if I can get you to. Here's my West Street thing here. So now in Google Earth, Google Maps. So we're somewhere around here. And I want you to notice something. Well, let me see if I can find it. Let's go up West Street. Wait. And now I think you're noticing these things, right?
The curbing is higher.
Yeah. But the things I was talking about, let's see if I can find one. So let's see. I'm not finding them. Well, for the signage, like the signs on the street signs, the like, you know, the informative signs. I can't find any of them. We used a regular sign post instead of, well, you know, instead of a lot of this. We tried to put in, now some of that might have changed. This might be one. Of course, the finial is gone. We've tried to put in regular signs with a little acorn finial at the top. So it looked all of a set, and we didn't have a billion different signs. Everything was supposed to be on, all the signs were supposed to be on the signpost. And that would be a specific signpost, so we don't get signs all over the place like this. We don't really want that, but sometimes you have to have it. So anyway, that's one of the elements, some of the elements that we dealt with. Street trees, lots of street trees, as many as we could put in. And we were one of the first to use this structural soil mix. I don't know who's familiar with it, but it's if you were to dig up a sidewalk, the tree roots like to be in the area between the sidewalk, the bottom of the sidewalk, and the soil, because it's an area where there's moisture and air. So what we did was we put this structural soil mix that allows for, it holds up the sidewalk structurally, but it allows for tree roots to thrive underneath the sidewalk. They're less likely to push anything up, the sidewalk up, because they have a place to grow. And now I'm not finding any of my signposts, but you know, that's something we were trying to maximize on the east side sidewalk. And then the light poles, you know, here's a great example The light poles, are standard New York City light poles. Now let's go back to, did I get rid of Central Avenue?
Just a quick question here because I'm being called into another meeting. Dilip, do you know how to manage Zoom if I make you a co-host? And Heather?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just did that. I'm going to pause and step away for a little bit, but you know, it's 8 o'clock now, so you guys have another 30.
Okay, I'll move
You have
on.
another 30 minutes as long as anybody wants to stay on. That this meeting will continue.
Okay. So if anybody wants to add
Thanks.
anything or interrupt, please feel free. So I'm going to go on about what are our
I
tools.
would like to mention, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm familiar with that soil. I've also seen in some of the things that I kind of search as far as the tree roots, etc., is that they'll sometimes I've seen them dig out a larger cavity. Maybe it does fill with that substrate, that certain type of substrate, and then that supports it, and then puts it over. But it's actually this basically where the roots are inserted, well, not inserted, planted. It gives them, much more reach, because unlike everyone says, okay, yeah, the tree roots go straight down as far as the high, how tall the tree is. That's malarkey.
No, yeah.
Whether they grow sideways. So, but there's this misconception that they go straight down.
No,
That's not the case.
The rule of thumb, although it's not really accurate, is the drip line of the tree. The roots go as far as the drip line of the tree. The tap roots or whatever that really hold the tree up are not the feeder roots. They're the smaller roots. But the tree pit itself has to be regular soil, but the area under the sidewalk can be that kind of structural soil mix, or something called silvacells, which are like also structural. So in other words, you have to hold up the sidewalk and it's compacted soil, whereas this stuff is a mix of stones and different material and something called hydrogel, which is like this tackifier. So you don't want it in the tree pit itself. You want the soil medium, but under the sidewalk, you could do it. And you could put porous pavement there and you'd be doing great. We have opportunities to do that. I wanted to talk about what are our tools for, some of our tools for improving street. I guess I'm particularly concerned because I've read that the county is doing Kennedy Boulevard. So I really would love to see a real streetscape, not, some kind of moving traffic only. It's all a mix, and it's all doing, Kennedy Boulevard has so much opportunity, so much potential, and it just looks kind of awful. So pedestrian refuge areas, as you pointed out, Jean, plantings, bump outs, as you pointed out, David, high visibility crosswalks, access, doing ADA, but doing it as well as possible. Friction means parked cars and other things can slow traffic down a little bit so people aren't racing. So, if you have 12-foot lanes, people race, you put them down to 11 feet, they drive a little more slowly. It does not necessarily encourage accidents because people are going a little slower. Traffic calming, Kennedy is a challenge to cross. Who does what? And that's something I want to get into in the next thing, but I'm a landscape architect. Civil engineers do certain things. They do not take any classes. They have no education in aesthetics. So, one of the issues I have is often civil engineers an engineering firm will be hired to do a streetscape design, and they know It's not really their thing. But they can work with landscape architect. And then often landscape architects I found in Jersey City are confused with arborists. An arborist is more like a tree doctor. They may do a planting plan, but they're not designers of streetscapes. So they're just specifically about trees, tree health, and they know a lot more often than a landscape architect would know. But these are three different separate professions. And so I just wanted to mention that because just having the clarity of that. I did want to mention, I was looking at, again, the civil engineering curriculum for NJIT is, let's go. Computers, engineering design, calculus, chemistry lab, surveying, physics, hydraulics, soil mechanics, transportation engineering, steel design. This is what they learn, which is great and totally necessary. Then you've got, this is my alma mater. And you've got Design Studio 1, Design Studio 2, History of Landscape Architecture, Natural Processes in Design and Planning, Plant Materials, Place, Culture, Design. So it's a different comprehensive land planning professional practice, landscape design studio. It is a different, we do overlap in what we do, but it's a different can of worms. And then here's another project I worked on where when I was at DOT, where this is Route 347 in Long Island. I don't know if anyone's familiar with it. It was the extension of the Northern State Parkway. It was supposed to be a highway that kept going. Our guys were about to construct it, and the community and the elected officials went crazy, and they were trying to stop the project. So I'm like a good troubleshooter in general. So I went out there and worked with our people, and it was like there was a crossing every 5,000 feet or something, or half a mile. So we made so many changes to the design. We took the pathway, we narrowed it, we put in a planted median. We made something called a shared use path, which is a bikeway and a walkway. So we widened that. We put in these little green stops. There's one here, I think. So almost like a little parklet thing here next to the bus stop. So better access for transit. And this is a suburban area. So really just having the planting, having, this space, it made a difference. And the community loved it. The public loved it. The elected officials were very happy. It was like a bit of a love fest by the end. And we got the Smart Growth Award from, I try to remember the name of the organization. But, of course it isn't perfect, but one can think about retrofitting certain areas. Again, here's what I want to show you. Oh no, that wasn't the thing I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you the Central Avenue streetscape again and look at oh, that's a picture. Okay, didn't want to do that. Here's my this is my Central Avenue street. No, that's a picture. I must have gotten rid of my Central Avenue streetscape. So let me go back to Central Avenue. And let's go back to and move this? Everybody's on the side now.
Right in the middle.
So here's what we've got here, right? We've got the lights, which are nice. I like them. And then what do we have here? I think this has been removed, hopefully, since then. What do we have here? How could we improve what was done on what was done? What's this? It's a signal arm that is not changing. Even though we've got these green light pole, lights, street lights that are lovely. Could we paint this color and the signal head green? Would it make a difference? I think it would. I think nobody would notice. Nobody would notice you painted it, but you would feel it. I would feel it. What else do you notice here? Oops.
You have different
Could you
lights
get
going
some
down the street.
Signs here. Do you need every few feet a street sign? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One block. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. With 4 things on each one. Is that necessary? I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's like there's a lot more street signs than there are, it's just all over. It's all over. Everywhere.
Yeah,
Every few feet.
yeah, I would suggest it's visual clutter.
It is. This could be green. This could be green. There's so many things I don't want to get into what should have been done on Central Avenue, but what still could be done, there's a lot that still could be done, and frankly, for very little money. Another street sign. Hopefully that's gone by now. Wait, when was this taken? Let's see. August 2022. They were supposed to take out all the additional light poles, but I mean, to me, there's so much potential, to create a nicer environment. The choice of tree wasn't my favorite. It's tiny. It doesn't do anything for shade. But
Is that a ginkgo tree?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't stand those things.
I know. I'm with you.
Can we talk a little bit about sorry, just about like the trees that are planted and like how to care for the trees that are, is that something that you plan on addressing?
Well, I mean, the way to care for trees is to water them and remove dirt and remove the suckers from the, to move suckers and other things. I mean, these are new trees. They should be watered. There's a 2-year period of establishment. The big thing is selection of appropriate trees and selection of trees that are very, very healthy when you go to the nursery. Giving the trees enough space and open space to, the tree pit should be large enough to get a lot of air and water, not covering up the tree pits with, tree grates or anything else. It used to be, we put in granite blocks and all kinds of stuff. We don't do that anymore because the research shows trees need bigger areas. So like a 5x10 tree pit is the best thing.
Okay.
We did not do that here. We have 5x5 tree pits, which are quite small. Putting a little barrier around the tree pits is good to stop, dogs and so forth. one of the things we noticed on Central Avenue is a lot of the businesses put their trash in the tree pit when it's trash pickup day. We're trying to get them to stop doing that. I mean, meaning the members of the community that are involved, but it's, you know, I would love to see this sign, you know, consolidated into one signpost or two signposts that are painted green, and get the signs off of everything else. So it's kind of like that, you know. I you know, there's so much nice architecture. There's so much, you know, it's a very vibrant street. So I would love to see some places to sit, like a little pocket park where you could bring food or whatever. But, you know, there's opportunity, even with the closure of the project, to really improve things. Unfortunately, you know, not to critique everything, but the designer was an engineer. They did not have a sense of, they did not have a landscape architect or urban designer or urban planner. You know, they don't know the streetscape elements. They know pavement and all that. And they knew to put in new lights, but unfortunately it's got all, you know, could have been a much better, more unified plan. And it's very disappointing.
I could speak about the trees a little bit if anyone has time. Just to answer some of that question is that we all know to maintain a tree, you have to water it. There are certain maintenance things like Heather had mentioned about the suckers, that type of stuff. But the city does not go certain trees that the city have planted that's site, as Heather was saying. Excuse my internet connection is unstable. Okay. But there are lists of trees that with their specific height maximums that should be planted in certain areas. Similarly, these ginkgo trees, one, they're not native, and two, they support no animal life. They don't support any of our native insects, our native pollinators, our native birds. They are useless. Also, as Heather was saying, that the city is supposed to get healthy trees. I've gone to sites where they've planted their new trees and they are not healthy. There's a gash here, there's a gash there, which is where the insects are going to go, or the fungi, and they're going to damage that tree and shorten its life. But the city does nothing to maintain its tree stock. The best is basically for us to do it. It's really sad, but and there are other new examples of trees that, for example, on a narrow sidewalk like this, that are columnar species that go straight up. They're not ginkgos, but they're oaks. And there's a variety of species that we need to introduce in order to beautify and make our canopy more functional and site appropriate. So, and also, I'm sorry, one last thing is that they have to be salt tolerant. You know, when you think of the sidewalk salt, you think of the street salt, and when all that gets piled into these tree pits, you're killing the trees for most part. So if we had more, maybe like raised surrounds, I don't know what the term would be. Heather, I'm sure you would know. Raised surrounds for these tree pits, that would in some ways stop some of the absorption of these chemicals into the tree root area.
Well, you don't really want a solid edge because you're
Correct.
not
I
gonna
understand.
run off of water into the tree pit at all.
Hmm.
You're limited, especially if it's got a, you know, a dense crown. But the trees do have to be tolerant. There's a list of trees that are appropriate for street tree planting. And it is a limited list, but it's a list. Ginkgos are probably on that list because nothing touches them, they live through anything. They don't have a great form. But to go back to how do you maintain a tree, one, you pick the right tree for the right spot. Two, you make sure you have a healthy specimen by tagging the trees at the nursery. Three, you keep, usually in the contract, it says the contractor is responsible for maintaining the health of the tree for the first 2 years, known as a period of establishment. Once a tree is established, like a tree is in shock when it's transplanted. Its roots have been cut, and it takes time for the tree to reestablish itself.
Yeah.
You lose about 20% of the trees just through, you know, putting so many, you know, the shock to the tree. However, one of the things the city has not done is to follow up with our contractors that we are paying for good money for our trees and not follow up with them during the period of establishment, that they are watering and maintaining the trees with mulch. They are pruning the trees as they're put in so that there are no cross branches. They selecting trees so they have a single healthy leader. Removing stakes from the trees after the trees are established. I cannot tell you how many times I have walked around and found trees that are still staked. 2 years later, 3 years later, 4 years later, I find these old stakes all over, trees that look like shrubs that should never have been planted, that were never maintained. Sometimes contractors prefer to let the trees die because it's cheaper to get a new tree and put it in than it is to maintain the tree. And then there is no period of establishment once that is the case. Once you pass the 2-year period of establishment and you've replaced the tree, that's it. You don't get another 2 years. So it is really essential that the city acts appropriately and has an appropriate staff to monitor and project management of these important projects, such as tree planting, and have someone that the contractor has to report to every time they water the tree, you know, taking a photo, tagging them, you know, having a code. What do you call it? CR code.
Heather, the one thing that is really important, and this is when you plant a tree, you have somebody that knows how to plant the tree.
Absolutely.
All right. If you don't, they might plant it too deep and the plant's going to die. If you plant it way too high, you can't. It should be showing part of the root collar as you're planting it. And then, as you said, watering it. You have to have a plan who's going to be in charge of doing that. You know, whether it's the road department that comes around or you know, one of the civil groups that does it. Is it going to be the store owner that has the tree in the front of their property? You know, you got to make sure that that all is in order when the tree is being planted and that it is already set up, ready to go when that tree hits the ground.
That's excellent point, having a plan.
You know, and the
Excellent
other
point.
thing is, like, okay, as you go down your street here, you see different plants, they're in different stages of growth. One is short, one is taller. You know, it was planted at different times. That's really great to do. But also have a diverse species of trees. Don't have them all the same going down the road.
Yeah,
Hopefully they weren't elms and they all got wiped out with the, the disease that came along. All right, you got to make sure that everything is diverse, and that's also with who's taking care of everything.
that's a very good point. The trees need to be planted so that the root collar is above ground. Most people plant trees too low, and they think that and what drives me nuts is when people come around on the side streets, very well-meaning, and put a piece of wood, a wood box around, and then they fill up with stuff. Again, the tree root, the trunk will rot, and it happens all the time. Another thing, again, I want to emphasize: if you have a contract, plant trees, a city has a contract with a tree planting company, it is that company's responsibility, not the store owner, not anyone else, to maintain that tree. Now, if they want for 2 years, that means watering, that means, weeding, that means everything. So it is not in our interest in relieving that contractor of his responsibility. We need to understand that the responsibility from Jersey City is to manage its contracts. And that means someone who knows about trees, not the engineering department, because they'll look at everything and say it's fine. It is a project management position that needs to be created. Now, I will say our new forester comes from New York City Parks. I've met him a couple of times. He's fantastic, and he knows what needs to be done. He's new. He's got his hands full, but I give him, he's fantastic. So that is great news. I hope he can hire whatever he needs to hire to manage the tree planting program. In New York City Parks, they have a street tree division group that, administers these contracts. You need contract administration with reporting, so it's not a haphazard thing. So you go into a contract and you have somebody, you tell them, I want you to plant my tree, I want you to water it, I want you to do this, and I want you to make sure it's okay, and I want you to do this on a regular basis. And then two years later, the person has never showed up. I think if it's your personal property and you're paying for it, this is all our collective. I'm of a belief that great public work has a huge impact on the quality of people's lives. So you walk outside every day and you see something ugly, you don't feel good. But you walk outside every day and you see something beautiful, you do feel good, and it affects you every single day. So some really beautiful tree, one beautiful tree by your house, it sounds cliche, but it'll change your life to some extent. Yeah, it's not going to solve all your problems, but it does have an impact on your inner peace. So I want the contractors that do work for Jersey City to be responsible and have their feet held to the fire. And we need to do a better job approving which trees have been, we need to tag trees. I have a list of things that need to be done. Tag trees at the nursery, meaning somebody goes who knows about trees and selects the trees before they are brought to the site for planting. Once they're brought to the site, somebody needs to supervise the planting. Who knows about planting? And that is from the city side, needs to supervise their contractors because they'll do whatever they can to get out of it fast. So it is it's a management thing. but it's making sure that our taxpayer dollars and our environment that we live in is that we get what we're paying for and is a beautiful, uplifting place to be. I mean, I'm looking at this picture of Central Avenue, and there's so much potential. It's a great street. It's got so much going for it. And, I just like to see, a little more aesthetic attention and a little more detail. So, you don't even realize all the little details that make something attractive until like the light fixtures, the signal arms. And, I'm looking at this picture and I'm seeing these other lights they hadn't taken down yet in August. And it's visual clutter. It does affect how you see this. I mean, if we were to, Photoshop out this and this and this, and maybe make this a round pole that's green with a couple of signs on it, it might feel differently.
Most certainly. The lights of the top silver lights remind me of the things that you see on the turnpike or something.
Yeah, they are the Cobra heads. Yeah.
Heather and Jean, when I look at this street, I see several different types of lights on the street, right? I mean,
these, but they never
also
down. They didn't. They put these in, and then they said we're going to take these down later, which they did.
But the one thing is, I see several different buildings. It's not a matter of making all of them uniform. It's making something that they all have in common, which when you were going over like the signage in the front of this store, all right, or something like that, what puts them as a unit, as a little community, a little, all right, say it's Central Ave, commercial zone, all right? Well, what can we do to make it look like we are a community, all right? They themselves have to come together to try and get something together. And the message has to go to them that live in that community to make them feel like they are part of the community. One thing that I noticed Deborah has done, especially during the spring, summer, and fall, she has these groups that go out to the different parts or different areas of Jersey City, and they look after hundreds of trees, and everything. What is that great about? What's so great about it? Because the people who are volunteering and doing something for that area, they are becoming part of that city, but it's an inner group within that city that is growing, and it's getting more members as it develops year after year. And I love coming to these meetings. I'm on the other side of Jersey from you guys, but I love it because, I did grow up in Bergen and Passaic County, all right? Well, except for 11 years out here in Warren County. And I just wish out here we had that type of unity that Deborah is growing in Jersey City, and other people are helping her. You Heather and Jean and so forth. It's really great that they're having these talks, and I look forward to them.
Well, thanks. So I think that's it, unless anyone else wants to say anything. Frenchie, you want to say anything? Any thoughts? Don't hear anything.
I see it's just about 8:30, and I think it's time I'm going to be signing off And thank
Okay.
you for a great meeting.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. This was wonderful.
Good, I'm glad. Take care. Maybe I'll run into you. Where do you live?
I'm certainly we will.
Where do you live in the Heights?
No, I'm not in the Heights. I'm
You're
in,
not in the Heights, right? Friendship.
no, but you know, I spend a
Megan.
lot of time, or had spent a lot of time at the reservoir.
Oh, okay.
I'm a volunteer
Oh.
there as well, so
Oh, okay.
I'm waiting for that thing to happen.
I'm on the board of the reservoir.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So is Cynthia still
Yeah.
involved, or is it more? I know Sarah resigned.
Right.
Yeah, so I haven't checked to see who the new, but that whole protracted project burns me up.
Don't even get me started.
Okay, I won't. Besides, somebody's knocking on my door.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you.
So nice to meet you, Heather.
Nice to meet you
Thank
too.
you. Okay.
How do I hang up? I don't know how to hang this up now. Oh, here it is. Chat. Things. And leave.